been looming over humanity for decades. The Cold War may be over, but the dangers of nuclear weapons are still very much present. Since the first nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945, the world has been living under the shadow of mutually assured destruction. It's a threat that's been somewhat contained through diplomacy and treaties, but it's still there, lurking in the background. The devastating power of nuclear weapons has been demonstrated time and time again. From the mushroom cloud that rose over Nagasaki, to the countless nuclear tests conducted in the deserts of Nevada and Kazakhstan. We've seen the destruction that these weapons can cause, and it's a sobering thought. But despite the devastation, we've never experienced a full-scale nuclear war. We've been lucky, or perhaps we've just been clever enough to avoid it so far. In recent years, the threat of nuclear war has started to feel more real again. Tensions between nations are rising, and the rhetoric is getting more aggressive. It's easy to dismiss the threats as empty posturing, but the truth is, we're playing with fire. Nuclear war isn't just about destruction, it's about the very survival of humanity. And that's what I want to explore in this video, the real cost of nuclear war. In the event of a nuclear conflict, the immediate destruction would be catastrophic. Cities would be reduced to rubble. Entire nations would be wiped off the map, and the death toll would be staggering. But that's just the beginning. The long-term effects of nuclear war would be felt for generations to come. Radiation would contaminate the soil, water, and air, causing widespread illness and death. The environmental impact would be devastating, with entire ecosystems collapsing under the weight of radioactive fallout. The human cost of nuclear war is almost too terrible to contemplate. Millions of people would be killed instantly, with many more dying in the days and weeks that follow. The survivors would be left to pick up the pieces in a world that's been irreparably damaged. They'd face a future without food, water, or shelter, forced to live in a perpetual state of fear and uncertainty. The psychological trauma would be immense, with survivors struggling to come to terms with the devastation they've witnessed. The economic cost of nuclear war would be staggering. Global trade would collapse, economies would be ruined, and the world would be plunged into a deep depression. The cost of rebuilding would be astronomical, and it's unlikely that the world would ever be able to recover fully. The aftermath of a nuclear war would be a bleak, desolate place, with entire nations struggling to survive. But it's not just the immediate aftermath that's concerning, it's the long-term implications as well. A nuclear war would set back human progress by decades, if not centuries. The scientific advancements we've made would be lost, and we'd be forced to start again from scratch. The world would be a darker, more primitive place, with humanity struggling to survive in a harsh, unforgiving environment. One way to understand the cost of nuclear war is to look at the hypothetical scenario of a conflict between two nations. Let's say, for example, that India and Pakistan, two nuclear-armed nations with a long history of tension, were to engage in a nuclear war. The immediate destruction would be catastrophic, with cities like Mumbai and Karachi being reduced to rubble. The death toll would be in the millions, with many more dying in the days and weeks that follow. The environmental impact would be devastating, with the radioactive fallout spreading across the entire region. The Himalayan mountains, once a pristine and untouched wilderness, would be contaminated with radioactive waste. The Ganges River, considered sacred by millions of Hindus, would be undrinkable, and the entire ecosystem would be irreparably damaged. In the aftermath of the conflict, the survivors would be left to pick up the pieces in a world that's been irreparably damaged. They'd face a future without food, water, or shelter, forced to live in a perpetual state of fear and uncertainty. The psychological trauma would be immense, with survivors struggling to come to terms with the devastation they've witnessed. The recovery efforts would be slow and painful, with the international community struggling to respond to the disaster. Aid would be slow to arrive, and when it does, it would be inadequate to meet the scale of the disaster. The world would be forced to watch as millions of people struggle to survive in a desolate post-apocalyptic landscape. As the years go by, the world would slowly start to rebuild, but it would never be the same again. The memory of the devastation would linger, a constant reminder of the dangers of nuclear war. The cost of such a conflict would be too high to bear, and it's a future that we should do everything in our power to avoid. So, what can we do to prevent such a catastrophe? The answer is complex. Many people say we need to disarm. However, that relies on the cooperation of countries across the world, many of which are not inclined to work with the major powers. We can continue to seek a political compromise that reduces the threat of nuclear war, but the threat is too great, and the cost is too high to bear. We need to work together as a community to push for politicians to reduce the number of nuclear weapons and to prevent the proliferation of these weapons to more nations. In conclusion, the cost of nuclear war is too high to bear. It's a catastrophe that we should do everything in our power to avoid. The human, environmental, and economic costs are too great. The long-term implications are too devastating to contemplate. So, let's work together to build a safer, more secure world, where the threat of nuclear war is just a distant memory. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments below. If you want to learn more about the dangers of nuclear war, be sure to check out our next video, where we'll be exploring the history of nuclear weapons and the current state of disarmament efforts.